Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Hey. Welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. I'm trying to do something with my stupid phone at the moment. That isn't working. There it goes. Because apparently it could do stuff with that finger, but this finger is no good. Make sure I'm pointing it at me. So anywho, how's it going, everybody? Or anybody, I have no idea. If anybody's out there, had to miss last week because I had a pretty monstrous cold, although it was actually going to end up getting worse over the course of the week after it seemed to get better. I will note that if at some point during this stream that pops up, that means I'm having a coughing fit, and I didn't want people to have to see it. So, anywho, hope everybody else is doing well out there. I think I'm just about over this cold finally. Thank goodness. But it's pretty rough for a couple days there. And last night, the coughing hit me again like crazy. Hey, Anton, what's cooking? It's cooking. Welcome to the stream. So we got a few things to chat about today. Nothing of massive importance, but, we'll just kind of hang out for a little bit. But, thanks, sir. I appreciate that. But to start with, when I did do a stream last time, I said I had a thing I had to do, like right after the stream, just about. And so today we'll talk about that thing that I did. It was a sort of a silly thing, but my daughter had plans to go to this little pop-up event at a place in Vegas called Area 15, entertainment complex. Among other things, they have the Universal, horror thing there year-round. They got a thing from Meow Wolf. They got a bunch of stuff. I'd never been to it before. So she had a thing with a friend to go to it. Her friend had bought the tickets. They're like $50 a pop, so they wasn't super cheap, right? And her friend couldn't do it. Okay. So she signs the tickets over to my daughter. She goes looking for other friends. Everybody's busy. She really wanted to go. So I'm like, well, I'll do it. I'll go with you. And so, as a result, we wind up over at this Area 15. And I went to the Barbie Cafe. The Barbie Cafe, a large, very hairy man at the Barbie Cafe. Now, truth be told, there were actually a lot of other dads there when we were there. It was sort of set up so you had to kind of show up at a particular time, I guess, to control crowds. And so it wasn't super crowded, but they had a little cafe set up, and then they had a little area set up with roller skating, and with a very small area to roller skate. You pretty much had to be a little kid, which was fine. And you could buy stuff. And there are, of course, a lot of photo ops, which I'm not going to show a bunch of those because they'd have my daughter in them and, don't want to put her out there. But now keep in mind, most of the dads were there with kids like elementary school age. I'm there with a daughter who teaches elementary school. But it was kind of fun because we hadn't really done a good, dad-daughter sort of thing for a while. So that was kind of nice, to be able to do that. So they had inside the cafe, you had a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Why did I want to say demonstration? Not exhibition. They had some Malibu Barbies. Apparently this sickness is killing me here, my brain. But that's kind of what the inside of the Barbie Cafe looked like. Now it's it's an existing restaurant, and they just sort of rethemed it for this thing. But they did a pretty good job with it, to be honest with you. That was sort of behind where we were sitting. The tables were small. So I had to sit at the table because they were also kind of I had people sitting right behind me. I had to sit with my legs out on the side of the table. It's not the most comfortable seating in the world. I will say that. But the food was actually pretty damn good. I got to admit, I got a cherry limeade. I got this like cheeseburger, basically. Got the fries, had like a mayo aioli thing, you know? And I was impressed because I figured, well, like, dude, this is about little kids seeing some Barbie stuff, taking pictures. Like the food could kind of just be mediocre, you know? It's pretty good. My daughter got pretty much the same thing. And then she also got the ice cream float. Now, you didn't get to keep the car, but they served it in the car. The little thing with the ice cream, the little thing with the soda, you poured it yourself. Oh, hey, what's up? Ramey? Oh, getting a motorcycle with your son. Oh, God bless, and I hope he is very careful. But bye, sir. Thanks for stopping in, though. I appreciate that. So she got the little float, which was really good. And that's me getting my photo taken inside the Barbie box. I don't know what else you'd call it. It's kind of supposed to look like I think like a box that a doll would be in. I don't know. Either way, it was actually kind of fun. Like I said, my daughter and I, we used to go out for outings. I don't know, every 3 weeks. When she was younger, usually we'd like go to Sonic, get some drinks, get some tots, and we drive over to this place called the Buffalo Exchange, which is kind of a cool thrift store, you know, mostly with clothes, so she could look through stuff. I found a few things in my day there too. And then we'd hit some other places. Like there was a place called Cash for Chaos. So best I could describe it would be like Hot Topic circa late 80s, when it was still like metal for the most part. This place had metal, it had punk, it had like, you know, Monster t-shirts, a few various little thrifted items floating around, loud music. It was cool. Comic book shop that was over there at the time. So we'd hit a few places, and it was just sort of dad and daughter going out, having fun. Have not done that for years, so it was fun to get out and do that stuff. So that was the field trip. That was the big thing. Kind of unexpected. Felt a little bit silly there, but overall pretty darn cool. People there were really nice too. And they called me Ken. So, you know, I felt beautiful for the first time in my life. It's wonderful. Other news. Dark Horse Comics founder and CEO Mike Richardson was fired from his own company by Embracer, who bought it, which means, of course, it wasn't really his own company anymore. Now, he'd been with it for 40 years. Why do they fire the dude? Well, they want to modernize the company, which I suppose means getting a hold of that modern audience that everybody's so desperate to find that does not seem to exist. Or if it exists, they don't actually pay for anything. So his replacement, a guy named Jay Comas, is a video game executive. So basically what this sounds like is they want to basically kind of squeeze every dime and penny out of any IP that they have. And they will probably end up killing them as a result. So it's sad, but it's kind of how things go. If you really get down to it, that's Marvel and DC have kind of already gone that direction. Although at least they, you know, maybe ostensibly have comic book people in charge, but they're not really in charge. It's like the comic companies have become, their holdings are more valuable than the comic books they produce. So the big companies, they just want to get a hold of the goods. They don't care about comic books. But of course, the value of these things starts to fall apart when their foundation starts to fall apart. And they tend to invert everything and start killing the value instead of increasing the value and widening the brand. So, Anton asks, does anybody really read Dark Horse anymore? I've not read Dark Horse. Yeah, and I don't know how much Dark Horse even does these days, because I don't read them either, honestly. I don't read a lot of new. I read a lot of old. The new that I read, mostly people, doing crowdfunds, because I want to support people who are more independent from all these things. But yeah, so I mean, my guess is Dark Horse probably has gone through kind of a dark period, which made making this move easier. But it still sounds like they're pivoting away from comics to what else can we do? Which I think ultimately is going to be bad for a lot of this stuff. When the big companies took over in Vegas, buying the resorts, pre-corporate Vegas, right? We'll say post Mafia Vegas, if we really are in that era, and pre-corporate Vegas. The idea was you make so much money off the gambling, right? That all you want to do is get people in to gamble. So you had shows that were free or very inexpensive. You had rooms that were inexpensive. You had food that was inexpensive. You didn't need to make money off of those things because you're going to make so much money off the gambling. When corporate moved in, they're like, no, everything needs to be a profit center. So prices started going up for pretty much everything. Okay, but see, that's as crappy as that is for somebody who's on a budget. It at least says, hey, let's take the stuff we got and get the most value out of it that we can. As opposed to kind of what is happening with a lot of comic books would be if they came in and said, let's make all of our money off of the rooms and the food and the shows, but screw gambling. We don't care about gambling anymore. Well, that's why people were coming to Vegas, to gamble. Now, over time, the gambling has become a little less important just because more venues for gambling are out there, and the Indian casinos and riverboats and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff online. So they have had to branch out a little bit more. And you also got a new generation who doesn't really like to drink and gamble, which is a challenge for Vegas, which is why at Area 15, you have Universal Horror and you have all sorts of stuff like that. We have a thing in Vegas, I think it's still around, called Battlefield Vegas. And you can go there and fire heavy machine guns. And you could drive a tank and stuff like that, right? Experiential things, more clubs, etc. Now they're too expensive also. They need to bring prices down. But point is, if you're going into, say, a Dark Horse or wherever, and you're saying, screw the comics, what else can we do with this stuff? The what else can we do is fine. Can we merchandise it better? Video games, opportunities for cartoons, TV, movies, what have you. But you also should be shoring up the comic books. You should be saying, if you're at Marvel and DC, you should be going, we need to sell everything as well as like Absolute Batman is selling at the moment. Let's make this happen. Let's put the people in place. Let's figure out distribution. We need a better system of distribution than we have. You need to be doing these things because the comic books is where the creativity happens, right? You can merchandise Batman. You can make Batman cartoons, Batman movies, Batman whatever. Batman was created for the comic books. And it was for the comic book stories that you also create Robin, Joker, Catwoman, Riddler, Penguin, Killer Croc, Bane, etc. See, that's where the creativity happens. to fuel the comic book stories. The creativity mostly isn't happening in those other places, although it can. Harley Quinn was created for the cartoon. Okay. It can happen, and it could feed back into the comics. But a place where you're doing monthly stories in maybe multiple, comic books is where the creativity starts. Punisher is a big deal. Punisher is in existence because of a Spider-Man comic. Needed an interesting foe for Spider-Man. In comes the Punisher. He kind of hits people in a certain way, becomes more popular, and eventually becomes a character in his own right, in his own books. And he gets movies, etc., right? If all you're doing is just adapting what you got, you're not necessarily creating anything new. So you really need to focus on those comic books. Yes, you have a lot of great IPs already, but they can play out. You can do a really bad movie and suddenly a character is not as viable anymore. Maybe for a decade. You need to be creating new stuff, new characters who can become popular. You can't force it and you can't fake it. And they've tried. But you still need that churn of monthly comics, getting interesting characters out there. I mean, the Absolute Batman thing it's a adaptation of the character, but I have no doubt that he's going to be appearing at some point in video games. He's going to probably be appearing then in, I don't know, maybe an animated series, or just like a animated kind of special. Maybe live action. If he really hits a chord in people and is very popular, of course you're going to try to do something else with him. That's what you want the comic books for. So we'll see what they're going to do. Maybe they'll do okay. Let me check up on the chat here. Anton had said, I know nobody cares about the Oscars. I do, but I hope that Zootopia 2 wins for Best Animated Feature. Yeah, I haven't paid that much attention, but it might. Seems like it was pretty popular. I think it did pretty well, didn't it? So yeah, I don't know. So I'll be honest with you. I didn't know they still did, that they did a Best Animated Feature, which I guess makes sense now. In the old days, who would have won? Disney every few years? But now they put out so many animated features. It kind of makes sense for that to be its own category, yeah. But I remember they used to just have like the animated shorts, and it would always be, the winners in the old days would be like, Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, Disney. By the 80s, it was always some obscure animation done in like Hungary that nobody in America had ever heard of in a million years, because they just didn't make animated shorts anymore for the screen in the United States. But hey, yeah, I hope Zootopia wins, dude. If that's what you're into, I think that would be cool. And then we also give Dynamite a try. Thundar. So here's the thing. I picked up the Thundar book when it came out, and by picked up I mean literally I picked it up. I did not like the art. I did not like the art in that thing. So I put it down. Yeah. It didn't work for me. I don't know. I didn't like the style of it. So maybe I missed out. Maybe I could pick up on it later. But yeah, I did pick it up though, because I was like, Thundar could be fun. Love Thundar. Love the concept behind Thundar. I think Ruby Spears did an incredible job with it back in the day, and I'm going to do a review one of these days. But I wasn't that into the artwork. Yeah, which I got to be honest with you, kind of stops me on a lot of comic books nowadays that are more current day. I think one of the other reasons I pick up a lot of indie stuff is just because I'm interested in the story, but I like the art. It needs to be both for me, because there is stuff I see where it's like, that art's pretty cool, but I don't, the story they got, the concept doesn't really appeal to me. But if it's a story that appeals to me and the art is, to me, just not quite there, yeah, that'll cancel me out a lot of times, because I mean, I got, sort of a budget on what I'm spending money on for these things. My wife would probably argue with me on that. All right, well, dude, I'll if I find it, I'll pick it up. It sounds like I missed out, so I will. So I'll check it out. But yeah, the artwork didn't click for me on that one. I mentioned a couple weeks ago Paramount working on a G.I. Joe movie. They had two people. Now they said this is what the story was: two people writing scripts. And they're going to merge the scripts together to make the movie. And I'm like going, that sounds idiotic, but given the state of movie making these days, maybe so. Okay, no, it's badly reported. So based on what I've seen today, they had two people, Max Landis and Danny McBride, doing treatments, not writing scripts, full scripts, treatments. And they have rejected the Max Landis treatment. And what it sounds like is Paramount wants something very inspired by the 80s cartoon, which I think is a great idea. Because you got a built-in audience out there, people who love the old cartoon. Okay. But I think also the cartoon where it's high action adventure, fun, maybe not super drab colors, maybe a little bit over the top performances, could be a lot of fun for younger audiences as well. So that's what they want. Landis delivered a treatment where the world is ruled by Cobra and G.I. Joe, most people think, is just a conspiracy theory. There really isn't a G.I. Joe. And Paramount's like, no, that's not what we want. So that's out. It's gone. So McBride is still working on his treatment. I don't know what it'll be, but I do kind of like to see a company going, it sounds like a company that's not trying to, invert things. We know what the crowd wants with G.I. Joe. Let's give them this instead. Ha ha. Looks like maybe they're starting to wise up and say, what if we gave the fans what they actually want to see and just made something that's generally fun that other people want to see as well? So that gives me a little hope. We'll see. We'll see what they manage to do. Also in movie news, apparently Barbarella is going to be, I guess you could say, remade or readapted from the comics. I don't know if it's supposed to be a remake of the movie or an adaptation of the comics. Variety reports that Sydney Sweeney is signed up to play the title character, which could just sell some tickets. It's just entirely possible. Now, be honest with you, I don't know a massive amount about Barbarella, and I've actually never watched Barbarella because honestly, I'm not a Jane Fonda fan. So I've never gotten around to watching it. But it looks like something that could be a crowd pleaser, potentially. I mean, you got a attractive woman running around dressed up like that, fighting bad guys. That could just work. Now that's from Sony. So we got Paramount working on G.I. Joe, that's more like the 80s. We got Sony working on Barbarella with Sydney Sweeney. We could be starting to see the shift happening in getting away from inversions and highly political to getting back to entertainment, making mainstream films for the mainstream audience and actually selling tickets, which allows us then to merchandise, license, etc. Doesn't mean that they can't still do artsier pictures and more political stuff, but maybe they're going to figure out we got to make that for that particular audience. Smaller budgets. We'll make the big stuff for a big audience with a larger budget, and then we'll actually start making money. Because with Paramount buying Warner Brothers, two companies in debt, now in more debt, they have to make some profit here on their films, whether they want to or not. So there could be some house cleaning of executives who want to be activists. There really could be that moment where they say, you got to go. You got to go. We can't afford you. We cannot afford you. We got to focus on being profitable at this point. I think they're saying each studio is going to make 15 movies a year. So 30 films. Obviously still room in there for, some stuff that's got more niche audiences. But you got to think they need to probably try to get at least one good, big, mainstreamy kind of movie out every 2 months. Probably from each studio, maybe. So maybe, a total of 5 to 10 films, 6 to 10 films that are, more for a mainstream audience. G.I. Joe, Barbarella would probably fall into that category. So we will see what they do, but it could be helpful for them. Lady Wendolyn says, I just know that Duran Duran got, yeah, they do. They did get their name from it. That's right. That is right. Yeah, I've seen little scenes, but not a whole lot more. A couple things popped up in my feed after I'd already had everything prepped. So I don't have, any graphics for it or whatever, but apparently the Buffy remake, reboot, continuation, whatever the hell it was going to be, ain't going to be. It's been canceled, which I find interesting and also suggestive that you'd think there was a time where no matter what, they would have gone ahead with it. Now they're not going ahead with it. Now, I don't know if there's issues behind the scenes involving money, involving rights, involving whatever that were a problem. I think it's a real possibility. It's because they had come up with something very political that I want to say it's Hulu said, nah, that's okay. I think that's okay. We don't need to do that. Something had to happen because they love adapting. They love adapting big names, and Buffy is still a big name. I'm surprised that they canceled this. So I don't know what the story is behind it. It might have nothing to do with politics or the content. Could be other stuff entirely. But kind of an interesting move. And it does suggest Hollywood's starting to wake up a little bit. I think they're really starting to see the wolf at the door. There had to be a lot of people in Hollywood who didn't believe it could ever end. Ever. There were other times in history where it just about ended. And if any of these people paid attention to anything other than themselves or things that have happened, in their own lifetimes, they might have known this. But it's gotten bad at other times for Hollywood. And they bounced back. Maybe they'll bounce back from this one. But I think maybe a few more of them are suddenly at that point where they go, oh my God, like we actually could all be gone in a year and replaced. So maybe they're getting serious about pleasing a mass audience so they can make money. The other one is, it sounds like they are going to make an animated series of Firefly. So they've been teasing something coming. Was it going to be a live action thing? Looks like it's going to be animated, which, could be cool. There's a lot of fans out there of Firefly, no doubt about it. I had a bunch of friends who were really into it, and they were so mad when Fox canceled it. And I was like going, okay, but, well, they were also partly mad because most of them were, a little more left-wing, and Fox was, at least Fox News was a little more right-wing. So they kind of had a natural antipathy to Fox, but they were mad about that. And I remember being like, okay, but Fox put it on in the first place. Nobody else did. And if it was making a ton of money, Fox probably would have kept it on the air. Generally speaking, studios don't get rid of things that are highly profitable. They could get rid of something that's popular, but not profitable. But if it's profitable, they'll generally keep it. So I'm like, why are you mad at Fox? Like they didn't do it just to, cheese you guys off, for God's sakes. It's just business, man. Thomas Newley. I saw Jane Fonda and John Philip Law. Dude, you had to. Of course you had to. You've seen everyone, man. It's incredible. Is there anybody? I don't know. We could probably get a list of people you haven't actually met that would be shorter. But yeah, John Philip Law, I like him. He was good in that one Sinbad movie. I think that's my favorite of the Sinbad movies that Harryhausen did. And I liked him in Danger Diabolic as well. He was good in that. So those were a couple of little extras that I had. But it does seem like maybe we're starting to see not a shift from like left wing to right wing, which frankly I don't think would be useful at all. If you start injecting super right wing politics into stuff, it's going to be just as unpopular. You know, you could put in generally popular attitudes into things that are maybe a little political, but they have a general, 70, 75, 80% of people basically kind of agree with you. You could do that without too much difficulty. But what you really need to do is just aim for neutrality, and it's kind of like it's like that meme, of somebody making some political whatever statement and then the person saying, "Sir, this is a Wendy's." That's kind of like what the movie theater is. Like, you make an insanely political statement of one kind or another. And the audience a lot of times is going, "Sir, this is a He-Man movie. Like, what are we doing here? We should be watching this dude beat up Skeletor. We shouldn't be talking about current day politics in it. That's not the place. It's not the time. You could do that elsewhere." So maybe they're starting to figure out that they got to get this. It's entertainment. They're producing entertainment, not edutainment, not propaganda, entertainment. You could lace the entertainment with a little bit of propaganda. They always have. But you got to have the entertainment there so that the people who, they see the propaganda, they don't agree with it, can be like, okay, but movie's still funny. The romance was still good. The action was still good. Whatever kind of movie it is, that they could just be like, okay, there's the lecture. But it's got to be quick and it's got to be subtle. It can't be the focus of the whole thing. You can't turn the thing inside out, make a pretzel out of it to do that. There are movies you can make for that, but they're smaller budget and they're more niche. Especially if you're going for a political opinion that's held by about 25% of the population, well, then at best, you're going to get 25% of the movie audience going. And you won't even get all that. So you kind of got to go, okay, at best, we can expect to sell X number of tickets, make X number of dollars. So back it out. Here's the budget we could deal with. And by the way, Hollywood used to do that. I got to think they still do, but maybe they're just nuts and they have no idea how unpopular some of this stuff is and has become. But that was something they always did. You have your accountants, your smart guys with all their databases and everything, and they figure out what's our potential audience for this. How much of it are we likely to get? You knew you had to make a good movie, and it's tough. You could do everything right and still come up with a movie that just doesn't click with people, but you got to make the good movie. But here's our potential audience. Here's the budget that we could spend. And there were times probably where there are movies going, for the potential audience, we can't give this movie a big enough budget. It's not going to work. We can't do this. The special effects are going to be too expensive. So we're going to pass on the movie because we can't justify the funding. I got to think they're still doing that. But are they just nuts? Or are they just going, screw it, do it anyways? Or I don't know, man. It's crazy. Thomas, I never saw an episode of Firefly. I didn't either. I never started in on Firefly. And probably just because of where I was at the time in life. Like, I had other things going on. I had a group of friends who were like pounding on me day and night. Like, dude, Firefly, it's the greatest thing ever. You got to watch Firefly. And, and probably there was an element of me going like, sick of you guys telling me about Firefly. Now I'm not going to watch it at all. But I know it's one of those things I probably should watch eventually. And I probably will. I like things to be, a good 20 years old before I actually watch them. But yeah, I'll watch Firefly one of these days. But dude, it's got a great fan base. very passionate fan base. So if they make an animated series that really works, I think they will do really well with it. And I hope they do. I hope they do a good job. Okay. Movies of the week, maybe even movies of the 2 weeks. Seen a few movies lately, and there's a couple that I really, really dug that I wanted to throw out there. These are old movies. They're old movies, to be honest with you. Now, the first one has like a terrible rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics generally didn't like it. But I kind of dug it, man. It's called Roadie. It stars Meatloaf as a roadie. So the story basically is, I should say, it's kind of a comedy, although it's not a, laugh out loud all the time type of comedy. It's more like a weird, trippy little journey through life. You got some music in it, which is cool. Stars Meatloaf, like I said. You got a lot of cool cameos in it, though, too. Art Carney plays his dad. Gaylord Sarton from Hee Haw is in it as his a prospective brother-in-law. Khaki Hunter, not a major cameo, obviously, but she plays the groupie that he falls in love with. Don Cornelius is in it playing a concert promoter. But basically the story is he's like this truck driver in Texas, kind of a weird guy, but sort of a mechanical genius, right? And he sees this woman and instantly falls in love with her. And that's that groupie. And through her ends up becoming a roadie for this concert tour. And there his skills as a roadie become legendary. He's like the greatest roadie in the history of roadies. A lot of competition for him, but he still just wants this girl. Problem is, she has promised herself that the only man that she will lose her virginity to is Alice Cooper and no one else. And so that's this journey that they're on. So you do get, like I said, some cool other cameos. So you get Hank Jr. doing one of his famous songs. People ask me, Hank, why do you drink? You get that one. But then he does a duet with Roy Orbison. The Eyes of Texas Are Upon You. You get Blondie in there doing a rendition of Ring of Fire. And Debbie Harry, has a scene with Meatloaf where she kind of goes out with him and ultimately kind of gets rejected by him. But it's because he was in this weird fugue state. Anyways, and we do eventually get to Alice Cooper, who's great in it. It's a quirky movie. It's kind of chill. I knew within about 5 minutes I was going to like this movie. The vibe was right for me. Like I said, not well loved by critics. Really not well loved by critics. But I liked it, man. Alice Cooper isn't that kind of guy. Well, Alice Cooper was, he was still drinking and stuff back then. So I don't know, man. He might have been that kind of guy back in the day. But yeah, Roadie was cool. At the moment, it's on YouTube, like in a pretty good resolution. And I was watching it while I was working. So it was sort of like I'm listening and then I flip over and look at it for a minute and listening and look. So I still need to actually sit and watch the movie, like all the way through visually. But I think I'm going to do a review on it. So I'll get a chance when I do all that. But Roadie's, I thought it was a cool little flick. And I think it's worth watching. Other movie I'll talk about a little bit later that I liked. But let's look at some new releases, new campaigns, some coming attractions that are out there at the moment. I mentioned this, I think, last time as well. But the Dead at 17 Zombie Tramp crossover Kickstarter is now live. It's doing well, too. 304 backers, and that's when I checked about a week ago. Brought to you by Josh Howard, the creator of Dead at 17, and Dan Mendoza, creator of Zombie Tramp. Lots of covers to choose from on this one, including this one by, I think that's the Dan Mendoza cover. And Brian Baugh has a cover as well, a guy who does Wolf and Batsy. So if you're into horror and that kind of stuff, you might really dig this one. You might want to go check that out. Spider-Woman Omnibus is coming out in November. this sort of hit me because I just did that Spider-Woman cartoon review. This is going to collect her first appearance in Marvel Spotlight number 32, her Marvel 2-in-1 appearances, 50 issues of her own book, and some Avengers issues that she guest starred in, and What If number 17. So, I mean, it's an omnibus, folks. It's probably huge, but if you are into Spider-Woman, that's going to be pretty cool. Now, that's coming out in November. I don't have a price on it, but it's an omnibus, so it's going to be expensive. But if you're a Spider-Woman fan, you're going to want to look into that one. Fleischer Cartoons has released a Greatest Hits Volume 1 on Blu-ray. 20 newly restored cartoons. You can find it at rockinpins.com. And that's where Fleischer sells a bunch of stuff. The Blu-ray alone is $28, which I actually grabbed yesterday. There's also a bundle that includes an enamel pin, a sticker, and a postcard for $35. Cartoons on this one include, there's more obviously, but include Barnacle Bill, Betty Boop and Grampy, Christmas Comes But Once a Year. Frankly, I bought this for that one almost alone. I mean, I want the other ones too, but the restoration on Christmas Comes Once a Year is freaking incredible. I've seen it on YouTube. You get Coco's Earth Control, which is a crazy cartoon. The Mechanical Monsters, so we're talking Superman. Popeye the Sailor meets Alibaba's 40 Thieves. And Swing You Sinners, which is an awesome cartoon, which actually got a live stream I did, not copyright struck, but claimed. So I had to cut my review of that cartoon out. Some really, really good stuff on there. Now, these are done by I believe, granddaughter of Max Fleischer, who's been putting, money from her and maybe from others, I'm not sure what all the funding sources are, to restoring these old cartoons. And I mean, these are beautiful restorations of these things. So now they're getting this out. So hopefully, if this sells well, we'll get a volume 2 and they'll keep on rolling, because the Fleischer Studios rivaled Warner Brothers and Disney. Well, Warner Brothers put out entertaining cartoons, but Disney was more technically proficient, and Fleischer was as technically proficient, if not more so, than Disney for a lot of its existence. So, God, these need to be preserved. They're so freaking good, so amazing. So much of them coming from like the 30s, just amazing stuff. It's going to ship in May. So rockinpins.com, $28 for the Blu-ray. If you're into this stuff, you got to get this thing. Thomas says, I had every issue of Spider-Woman. I'm working on it. I'm a ways away. I've almost got every issue of Dazzler. Spider-Woman's another one I'm working on. And Savage She-Hulk. I think I mentioned this one last time around. I did a live stream. Billy Zane Phantom from 96 is coming to 4K from Kino Lorber. You could pre-order at Amazon for $33. It's officially going to be released April 14th. Might want to check that one out. This is the one movie from that era where post-Batman 89, you had The Shadow, you had Dick Tracy, you had Rocketeer, you had Phantom, all sort of with this 30s vibe, right? 30s, early 40s vibe. Phantom is the one I've never watched, and I keep looking for it, can I stream it, etc. But at any rate, that's the one I still need to watch. But I know it's very popular. A lot of people really love this one. So that's coming out from Kino Lorber, shipping April 14th, $33. I don't know if it's a restoration, but it's 4K. For UFO enthusiasts out there, I thought I'd bring this one up. A new film, S4, The Bob Lazar Story, is coming out this year, and there is a new trailer out there for it. So, Bob Lazar is famous for having come out in the 1980s to announce that, yes, the United States had alien spacecraft. He had seen them. He had worked on them at Area 51. And the story broke And it was through, I believe, no, it wasn't through Bigelow. Oh, golly, I can't think of the guy's name now. Darn it. I don't think it was Bigelow. But it broke through a reporter in Las Vegas named George Knapp. Now, George Knapp at the time was primarily a crime reporter. You know, he's an investigative reporter, but he primarily did crime stories. And he got turned on to this thing, and he did it's sort of like a weekend sort of talk show thingy, you know, always looking for guests. And he's like, oh, what the heck, you know, we'll do this guy. And I can remember as a kid watching the initial news stories on TV about this stuff and being like, man, I don't know if this guy is honest. I don't know if he's making this crap. I have no idea. But they were interesting stories at a minimum. And that pretty much like set George Knapp's life in a new direction. I mean, he is now the UFO guy. Now, he still does other reporting in Las Vegas. He's still on the TV here, but it sent him into the whole UFO world quite a bit. So there's kind of like it's kind of a Vegas connection here. Vegas is like the nexus of weird in so many different ways. And the fact that we have this connection to UFOs, it just makes perfect sense. If you live in Vegas and somebody tells you that, you know, there's UFO stuff going on around Vegas, you're like, yeah, obviously. I mean, how could there not be? How could there not be? We have cheap, shrimp cocktail. We have an entire economy based on gambling because we're like the last outpost of the Wild West. I mean, we're a weird city, man. Our cathedral's on the Strip, you know. Any rate, so you might want to check that out. I'm going to watch it for sure. It's interesting stuff. And I got to be honest with you, over the years, you know, listening to Bob Lazar, when he does tell a story, and he's not exactly out there looking for fame from this stuff. But if you look at the way they tried to cover it up pretty clumsily, and you listen to him talk about the stuff, you kind of go, I ain't so sure he isn't completely 100% right. Like, I don't think this dude's lying. I don't know, maybe they're tricking him too with something, but I don't think he's lying. And it seems like we're getting closer to maybe not a full disclosure, but more of a disclosure as we go. I'm still, you know, I'm kind of a skeptic. Like, I can accept they could exist. I don't necessarily know that they do exist. I haven't seen anything. It's a little tough when you haven't seen anything yourself. But I'm certainly not somebody who goes, no, it's impossible. Can't be. Could be. Could be. I watched a bunch of interviews with people involved with Roswell. And just regular people, you know. And I remember watching that going, I don't think these people are lying. I really don't. None of them had big books out or anything like that. I don't think they were lying about it. So I wonder. I really do wonder about some of this stuff, but who knows? But you might want to look for that. If you're into UFOs and all that kind of stuff, you might dig that. But I wanted to bring it up also because of the Vegas connection. Ripaverse has a new book up for pre-order. The Hellbound Stagecoach, written by the Soska sisters, art by Philip Burnett. I believe he was a contest winner in one of their art, contest things. Tells a story about some of the ancestors of their Blood Ruth character. She's a woman who works this sort of blood magic. It's kind of like in her family, so this kind of gets back to her ancestors, obviously set in the Old West. Werewolves are involved, always popular. There's 2 or 3 different werewolf westerns that are floating around right now. But that's one of them. So you might be into that. If you're into Ripaverse and you like, a little horror, like werewolves, Soskas obviously are into horror. So they should probably be pretty good with this subject. You might want to check that out. It should be up for pre-order right now. Now, this next one I don't have any imagery for because I haven't seen any official art for this or images for it. and I don't want to use other people's photos. But apparently, McFarlane is going to have numerous figures dropping for sale on March 18th, including Black Canary, which I wasn't real impressed with the sculpt there. Captain Marvel Jr., I can call him that because I don't have to pretend he's not called Captain Marvel. Vigilante, we're talking the cowboy version, that I'm interested in. Joker 89, so Jack Nicholson, I don't know, did they pay for his face? I think they did, so it might look like him. Lobo, and a Silver Age Supergirl. Kind of looks like first appearance of Supergirl. Maybe they're doing that because of the movie coming out. They wanted to, work on that stuff. In addition, there are some reveals out there for Teen Titans Robin, OMAC, but not the Kirby original, Starman, the steampunk version of the character, Bronze Tiger, not the original costume, Gangbuster, which I am interested in. I always thought he was cool. Larfleeze, he's one of the Green Lanterns. Batman, Deadman version. Don't know about that one. And Batman, Dark Knight Returns version. Now, I don't know when those are dropping, but the first ones I mentioned, Black Canary, Captain Marvel Jr., Vigilante, Joker 89, Lobo, Silver Age Supergirl, March 18th is when those will be available for pre-order. So stay tuned to McFarlane, like on Twitter or wherever, and you probably catch when that's happening. Also, this one just dropped today. A 2-pack of Mongol and Superman is going to be up on for March 19th. Now that one, there is an official image of. Let's see if I can find it. See how well that works. There you go. So that's coming up March 19th for sale. If that appeals to you, you might want to check that out. And that's the last of my notes that I had for stuff that came up after I had already prepared my dang stream. So we got a couple more here. If you have $235 burning a hole in your pocket, you might opt to purchase Mondo's new Spider-Man, the animated series, 1/6 scale Daredevil, obviously based on his original costume. Pre-orders for this one open March 17th at noon Eastern time. $235. A little bit steep for me, but, kind of a cool figure, very brightly colored. But I guess it's based on the animated series, so that makes sense. Archie is getting a new facsimile. Archie number 125. Original was out February 1962. Facsimile edition can be pre-ordered now on the Archie site for $4.99. I grabbed it yesterday because they do free shipping on the floppies. So if you're an Archie fan, you're looking for facsimiles, that one is available right now. The new issue of The Atlantean, issue number 4, is up for pre-order on fundmycomic.com. Cole and Brule hunting for the heart of the Serpent Kingdom. This is one of my favorite books out there at the moment. They do a fantastic job with it. Great art. Feels very much like, 80s Savage sort of Conan, the black and white magazine. Very, very cool. $15, and there's other bundles you can get if you want to catch up on the other 3 issues. The Serpent Kingdom graphic novel they did. They're all good. I've shown them off on this site a few times. So you might want to check that out if you like classic sword and sorcery. That's what they do with those. Fantastic. NECA has a Frankenstein and Bride 2-pack coming in the spring, which is kind of now, just about, for the film's 90th anniversary. It looks like the black and white versions. I think these are the figures they've released before, but they're putting them in a 2-pack. At least that's the vibe I'm getting off of it. But if you missed them the first time around, have an opportunity to buy them now. And finally, Grokken 4 from Kenneth Rocafort is going live on Kickstarter March 25th. I have not read Grokken, but I hear a lot of good things about it. So for folks that are into that or who want to check it out, the art looks freaking amazing. And that's why I almost picked up Grokken 3. And there were just too many other things at the time that I was getting. So I'm like, you got to make choices. And I left that one behind because I'd already missed the first 2. But it's something maybe I'll catch up on one of these days, like Thundar I need to catch up on now apparently too. But Grok and 4, so you might want to check for that. The art's beautiful. The art is fantastic. Probably well worth looking into. All right. So let's do another movie suggestion for this week, and then I'll show off a couple other items that have arrived in the den recently, and then we'll call it a day. Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster. So I had this thing sitting like in my queue to watch for a while. Monster movie, kind of a B movie. It's an Italian film, and it just sort of... So last weekend, man, I'm sick. I'm out. I basically sat on the couch and watched movies all day. And I'm like, let me just go through a lot of stuff I've had in my queue for a while. I'll put it on. If I don't dig it, I'll turn it off and go to something else. So Kaltiki. Difficult to find a good dubbed version. Difficult. I found one. It's not a great dub, but it was good enough. But what did I really dig about this thing is, so the story is these archaeologists go into this temple. They find this sort of weird blob creature. One of them gets attacked. The blob ultimately is sort of unleashed on the world. And eventually the Mexican army has to fight it. Okay. So a little bit like the old Blob film. I'm trying to think, did I have other imagery? No, I didn't have imagery for it. Okay. What interested me was the special effects. So the first guy who gets hit by this thing, he falls and he sticks his arm into the blob, basically, and comes out with this stuff on his arm, right? Gnarly, guy screaming. They get him away. They get him to a hospital. Dude, the special effect is they're peeling this stuff off of his arm. And as they do, all you see underneath it is the skeleton, the bones. And I was like, that's a really good special effect. And it's pretty gnarly. I didn't necessarily expect it. Like, what the heck? So I jump, into like IMDb or Wikipedia, whatever. I'm like, who did the special effects on this thing? Mario Bava. Okay. So I was like, oh, the special effects are pretty damn good. So the movie's fine. It's a monster movie. It's about what you expect from a monster movie. The dubbing is like not very good, frankly. It isn't, but the imagery and the special effects, very cool in this movie. If you've never watched it, I don't know, it's like an hour or something. It's not a real long movie. You might want to check it out. It's very cool. There's some gnarly stuff in it. You end up with tanks with flamethrowers and stuff. And who doesn't love tanks with flamethrowers? Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster. Oh, what was this? 1959. So, good flick. I recommend it for the Mario Bava cinematography and special effects. And obviously, he'd go on to do a lot of other great stuff, including Danger Diabolik, which we just talked about a second ago. Let me turn this off for a minute. Show off a couple things that have shown up in the den. This is something I had as a kid. And I basically destroyed this thing over the years. Eventually, literally just threw it away because there was almost nothing left. But I found a good copy of it on eBay at a really good price. And this dude is in good shape. Look at that spine. And I am super excited about this one. I think I'll probably do a full review of this one just to show off the art. I believe, was it Al Williamson? Look at this stuff. Oh, man. How excited were we about this? Good Lord. Oh, no, I'm trying to see if I can get the credits on this thing. Film production, Marvel. No, I think it was, I want to say Williamson, but I'm not finding it. I'll have to look it up. Look at me having to look like this because of my stupid bifocals. Anyways, super happy to finally get a hold of one of these. I've been looking for it. It's one of those cases of patience, basically. I waited until I found the price that I wanted, and eventually I got it. Grabbed a few comics recently, yesterday, in fact, but I did want to bring up a couple new facsimiles that are out at the moment. We get Detective. Well, let's see. Let me hold up one. We got the Action Comics with Brainiac. I have a feeling Brainiac is in the, I believe he's in the Supergirl movie, or is teased in the Supergirl movie, so that might be why they're putting this one out. It seems like they time a lot of their facsimiles with stuff they got coming out in the movies when they can. And we got the famous Joker Fish issue of Detective Comics, which I've never read. I'm excited to read this one. Dude, I like that they're using, DC is using newsprint in these things. It's pretty clean newsprint, but it is newsprint. It gives such a better texture to the work. Marvel's still using, glossier stuff. Not as good. Boom. Power Girl. And check out the posters, guys. Travolta. What do we got? Farrah, John Travolta, Jamie Summers, and Steve, Bionic Man. And then what's Group B? Kiss, Hardy Boys, Grizzly Adams, Christy McNichol, and Beretta, and Donnie and Marie. Oh, so you could get Group A. So Group A is the Farrah, Travolta, Jamie Summers, Bionic Man, and Donnie and Marie posters. Group B is Kiss, Hardy Boys, Grizzly Adams, Christy McNichol, and Beretta. All 5 posters for only $2. That's a bargain. And then I got a bunch of great comics out of a dollar bin. I was not even going to look, but found some good old stuff. So Action Comics, old Action Comics. Those. Check that out. Who is firing at Superman? Why? Probably because they're a bad guy. Got an old Avengers, which actually filled a gap for me in my collection. Some, slightly worn Flash comics. I don't know why, but it seems like when I find old Flash comics, they always look like they've just been beat to hell. I guess he had a particular, that's cool, Goldface. I like that one. And a bunch of that. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Prepare to be Lectured. And there's Green Lantern back by himself in his book. Dr. Polaris. Very cool. Adam Strange is in that one too. Yeah, that's right. They had Adam Strange doing the backups. There's Eclipso. There is, oh wow, they're going to chop his finger off to get his power ring. Crazy. Oh, Tattoo Man. Going after Tattoo Man. There's friggin', what's that dude? What was he called? Oh, Evil Star. There we go. I'm like, it ain't Star Man. I know that. Oh, wow. The Inheritance. Look at that. Got a lot of Gil Kane. And then some Commandees. Yeah, for $1. Again, they had a bunch of these. They had about like 7 of each issue in the dollar bin. So I kind of went through and grabbed the ones that looked like they were in the best shape, but pretty down with that. I really only expected to go in and grab those facsimiles. But I was walking past the $1 bin that's towards the back of this store, Cosmic Comics in Vegas, and saw the Commandi. Just it happened to be right there. I was like, whoa, Commandi, okay. For $1. Went through all the rest of them, nothing. And then I was about to leave. There was somebody getting checked out, so I went over to where they got a bunch of books that are usually like $2 or $3. Old Marvel, DC. And kind of flipped through, and I'm like, whoa, there's one for $1. Oh, okay. I kind of went through, and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of them for $1. So, very cool. Can't wait to read those. And I also got this delivered. Now, this is about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to do a full review on it, but this is, let's get it as close as we can, the Hank Pym and classic Silver Age Wasp figures, Marvel Legends. I became a huge fan of Wasp in that costume. when I was doing my Avengers Year One video. If you've never watched it or if you've never read the books, the Avengers at that point in time were the super jerks, basically. Justice League, very much super friends. They were all friends with each other. They're happy to be out there fighting bad guys. The Avengers were all jerks. I mean, they alienate the Hulk within an issue and he leaves. It's constant insulting between them. All of them. Thor, Iron Man, Pym, the Hulk, jerks. The only person holding them together is the Wasp. And she was just she was positive, but she was also the most fun character. She was always like sort of flirting with Thor because she thought he was hot, you know? A lot of life in that character. And I was reading through all those and going, I think Wasp is my favorite character. Now, I knew Wasp from later comic books and she was cool. Never was like a favorite character of mine, but I'm like, dude, I love this character. She's the best. And when she left, most of those characters, Captain America, of course, is brought in. And then the originals leave at a certain point, and the Avengers become Cap, Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. And when that happens, Scarlet Witch is the one trying to keep the peace, because Hawkeye and Quicksilver were even jerkier, driving Captain America up a freaking wall. But she was the one who was always trying to sort of keep the peace, keep them together. And she kind of had a crush on Captain America. Fun stuff. If you ever read the old ones, read these things. Sometimes the characters are a little different. You get a little more flavor from them. But at any rate, so very excited when this one was released. I'm like, oh yeah, totally got to get that. Love that version of Wasp. Love the crazy headgear. Haven't opened it up yet, but I'm going to do that for a review video. And I think that just about does it for Dad Live in the Den today. Survived without a major coughing fit, so I feel like that is a great thing. I did want to share my favorite thing on the internet this week. This popped up on a Twitter account, BC Comics, Komix. Posted it on Twitter. This is an image from the prehistoric ice capades, 1967. Basically, Fred and Wilma Flintstone on some kind of a dinosaur. That is the weirdest crap I think I've ever seen. And I thought it was interesting, too, that the outfit Wilma is wearing with the stripes sort of on it looks a lot like one I've seen her wear in the old Color Sunday Flintstones comic strip. They had a Flintstones comic strip once upon a time. And somebody posts those every now and again. And they usually had Wilma either wearing black or in like this stripe thing. The colors were always a little off for her and Betty, like what they wore. But at any rate, there you go, folks. The terror of the ice capades from 1967. They still do those things, I think, but they used to be a lot more prominent than they are now. Well, that'll do it for this one. Monday, I got a review of Thor number 347 out. Thor and Roger Willis going into the realm of fairy to confront Malekith. This is the Walt Simonson run. We're going through that all year long. On Wednesday, I'm going to have a review up of the Yancey Derringer TV show. Kind of a Western, not quite a Western. Talk about that one. It's a good show. It's solid. And on Friday, I'm going to have Newsboy Legion and Guardian Year One. When I did the Captain America Year One, it occurred to me it might be fun to take a look at the Guardian comic, because when Kirby and Simon left, I guess timely for National, but we could also just say Marvel for DC, they created the Guardian character who looks very much like Captain America, has the shield, same fighting style. Thought it might be fun to look at that character since I'd never read any of those. Now, of course, the main characters of that strip were the Newsboy Legion. Kirby would reuse those characters again when he came back to DC in the 60s, and they've kind of become staples to some degree since then in DC lore. But you could tune in, see what the first year of comics were for the Newsboy Legion and Guardian. It should be pretty fun. I had a good time reading those. But I believe that will do it for Dad's Den. Thank you, everybody who showed up for this one. Had to miss last week. Definitely wanted to get one in today. Hope everybody has a great Sunday. I pray for peace in the world. We'll see. Maybe we'll get there one of these days, someday soon. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there if you can. And I will see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.